Vox Africa News Studios, this is Adetukun Wakintayo with the Vox News. Newly elected interim president Catherine Samba-Panza has laid out her plans to restore order to Central African Republic after sectarian violence killed at least 7 people in the country's north on Tuesday. Samba-Panza, who became the country's new leader on Monday, told journalists that a return of safety is a top priority. The United Nations says more than 2,000 have been killed. The appointment of Samba-Panza, a candidate with no links to either camp in the fighting, raised hopes of an end to the slaughter. At Tuesday's press conference, Samba-Panza also warned more must be done to stop the violence.
We have thousands of youth who took up arms, who are either in the Seleka or the anti-Balaka. If we leave these young people in the streets, we haven't solved the problem. So together with the new government, the Security Minister, the Defence Minister, the Minister of Youth and others, we will see what opportunities we can offer these young people. I launched an appeal to say that I need the international community. If I want to restart the administration and the economy today, no public servant will be able to come into work. They won't even have the money for the journey into work. So I need aid to be able to ensure the minimum. And this minimum, we know very well, I can have from the international community. So I think that, for the moment, that's an important help.
It's a new day and there is a new leader in Central African Republic. But for hundreds of thousands crowded at camps for displaced people throughout the capital city, little has changed as they continue to line up for quickly dwindling food supplies. Around 100,000 live in a makeshift camp at Bongi Airport, and most were still too fearful to return home before making sure that sectarian violence has come to an end. Many residents were hopeful that the election of Samba-Panza will signal a new direction for the country. But food supplies are running low. According to the UN World Food Programme, WFP, 1,500 tons of food, enough to feed 155,000 people for a month, has been blocked on the border with Cameroon as truckers were too afraid to enter the country.
We are currently running out of stock. We have big problems with nearly 40 of our trucks that are blocked at the border between Cameroon and CAR. The drivers are too afraid to cross over to CAR because of the insecurity on the road. So our stocks are almost finished here, and within the next few days we'll have nothing left to distribute. So we are considering a very expensive operation that will be to airlift food from Cameroon to the airport here to be able to continue provide food to these very vulnerable people, all the women and children who live in this camp. I think most people here are still worried. There's a lot of mistrust between the communities after the several weeks of violence we've seen here. We'll see whether the new president can bring stability. Clearly this is something we are calling for all parts to bring stability, bring security back to the country, and also allow humanitarian access to all the people who need it here.
4 men charged with helping Al-Qaeda-linked militants launch a murderous attack on a Kenyan shopping mall have been taken to the mall they allegedly planned an attack on. Prosecutors say Mohammed Ahmed Abdi, Liban Abdullah Omar, Hussein Hassan and Adam Mohammed Ibrahim committed a terrorist act under Kenya's anti-terrorism laws and used false documents. They are accused of giving support and shelter to gunmen who killed at least 67 people during the assault on Nairobi's Westgate shopping complex that started on September 21, 2013. The men deny all the charges. Umbugwa Mureti, defense attorney for the accused, said his clients will be found innocent, adding that they were waiting for the conclusion of the case.
All our clients maintain that none of them have ever been to this building, and this is their first visit to this building. As you might know, one of them actually was arrested from a refugee camp in northern Kenya. So they maintain the position that they have never been here. But the final conclusion we will leave it to the court once all the witnesses are.
And we go to North Africa. Fighting between Libyan army and Gaddafi loyalists has left at least 2 people dead. Clashes broke out on Tuesday after soldiers backed by militia fighters loosely aligned with the government stormed the Washafena area on the western outskirts of Tripoli to capture gunmen they accused of belonging to pro-Gaddafi forces. Troops and militiamen fired anti-aircraft guns and rockets into the area after tribal fighters resisted with small rockets. Meanwhile, Libya's Justice and Construction Party, the second largest party in the interim administration, has announced it is quitting the government. The Islamist party said its 5 ministers will resign after it failed to win sufficient support for a motion to censure Prime Minister Ali Zaidan. Nigeria's President Goodluck Jonathan has found 12 replacements for ministers he sacked last year as he looks to shore up his support in an increasingly divided ruling party. Jonathan removed 9 ministers on September 11, mostly targeting junior posts in a move that did not affect the key posts of finance or oil. The defense minister and youth minister had been ousted earlier and not replaced. The most high-profile nomination is that of former Army General and National Security Advisor Aliyu Mohammed Gusau. Meanwhile, MPs in Nigeria's economic hub, Lagos, have passed a bill banning smoking in public places, including restaurants and on public transport. Offenders could face a $62 fine or up to 3 months in jail, or both. Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe has attended the funeral of his late 78-year-old sister Bridget in the village of Zimba, 90 kilometers west of capital city Harare. Mugabe attributed his long life to God's will, but shied away from commenting on his health on Tuesday, a day after scorching rumors he was sick, by appearing in public for the first time in several weeks. Mugabe, who is going bald, was seen whispering and laughing with his wife Grace at the funeral. Mugabe managed to sprinkle his speech with anecdotes about his fondness for British history and tradition, joking that he still measured distance in miles, unlike most Zimbabweans who use kilometers. Mugabe spoke in the Shona language to a crowd, including African and Western diplomats.
So do not say, how have you survived this long, when you are the eldest. I also don't know how I have lived this long.
United States Secretary of State John Kerry says there can be no role for Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in the transition to a new government as international peace talks open in Switzerland.
There is another way forward. We all know it. It is what this conference is organized around. It is the Geneva Communiqué, which has the support of the international community as a peaceful roadmap for transition. And the only thing standing in its way is the stubborn clinging to power of one man, one family.
New clashes broke out between the Ukrainian police and protesters in Kiev this morning, with protesters saying one demonstrator was shot dead by police. This was not immediately confirmed by the Ukrainian authorities, but a Reuters cameraman was shown the body of a man identified as a protester who had gunshot wounds to the head, neck and chest. The news that another demonstrator had fallen to his death during clashes came a few hours later. So far, the police has confirmed the death of only one protester. Let's talk tennis. Agnieszka Radwanska ended Victoria Azarenka's bid for a hat-trick of titles at Melbourne Park this morning and reached her maiden Australian Open semi-final with a 6-1, 5-7, 6-0 win. The 24-year-old Radwanska will play 28th-seeded Slovakian Dominika Cibulkova for a place in the final. Cibulkova shocked Maria Sharapova in the 4th round and kept up a momentum in fine style by dismantling Simona Halep 6-3, 6-0 to move into the last 4. World number 1 Rafael Nadal was forced to battle back from a set down before he blunted a challenge of Bulgaria's Grigor Dimitrov with a 3-6, 7-6, 7-6, 6-2 victory to advance to his 4th Australian Open semi-final. How to sustain the world's recovery from financial crisis is the focus as delegates gather for this year's World Economic Forum in Davos. As Jonah Partridge reports, there is an air of confidence around the Swiss ski resort this year.
The rich and powerful have been coming to the Swiss resort of Davos since 1971. But this year's World Economic Forum is focusing on the future, not the past, says Forum founder Klaus Schwab.
If we look at the programs of the last years, they have been overshadowed by crisis. It was last year, particularly the Euro crisis. Now it's time to look at the real fundamental changes which are happening in the world. It's the technology area, and the societal field and so on, and to pay much more attention to those challenges which we have to face in society and in the economy.
The security challenges are great. Presidents and Prime Ministers from Japan, South Korea and Mexico, along with the UK, Nigeria and Ukraine, are all giving speeches. And there's even the possibility of Israel and Iran's leaders coming face to face. President Hassan Rouhani is courting business after winning an easing of Iran's economic sanctions. At least 500 CEOs and numerous central bankers will be here taking part in public debates and, perhaps more importantly, holding private discussions. The world's seen a fragile recovery from financial crisis over the past year, partly thanks to low interest rates and ample liquidity. The question now is how to avoid harming that precious economic growth. The leaders who aren't here also tell a story. Brazil's president will be the only BRIC representative. And there's good reason for that, says the man who invented the acronym, former Goldman Sachs chairman Jim O'Neill.
Investors fell out of love with the BRIC markets 2-3 years ago, and the next tier, of which most of the Mint countries are part of, became quite popular and have done rather well until the past 6 months. To me, a lot of these places are very attractive for anybody that can think beyond the next 5 seconds.
But it's not all about emerging economies. IHS's chief economist predicts good fortune for the US, UK, Germany and Japan.
Emerging markets are slowing just as the developed world is accelerating. In a sense, that's good news because you've got this sort of rotation and growth, and it's not occurring at a bad time. And in fact, the advanced economies will help the emerging world a little bit this year because they'll provide some markets for exports for the emerging world.
The leaders of Germany, France and Spain are also absent this year for various reasons. But that could be seen as a good sign. The Eurozone is no longer centre stage.
But that's about it on Vox News. Thanks for staying with us. I'll be back with you shortly. Goodbye for now.